Typhoon Kalmaegi, known locally as Typhoon Tino in the Philippines, struck the central region of the country in early November 2025 and left a trail of immense destruction, particularly in Cebu Province. Talisay City, located on the southeastern coast of Cebu Island, was one of the areas worst hit by the tropical storm. With winds reaching up to 130 kilometers per hour and extreme rainfall, Kalmaegi triggered flash floods, landslides, and widespread infrastructure damage. In the early hours of Tuesday, November 4th, 2025, torrential rains began to pound Talisay relentlessly. The Mananga River, which runs through the city, overflowed within hours, causing floodwaters to sweep away homes along its banks. Many residents were unable to save their belongings due to the rapid rise of the water. Several semi-permanent homes were swept away, while private and public vehicles were seen piled up on the roads, which had become raging rivers. Residents living in low-lying areas were forced to evacuate to higher ground, many carrying only the clothes on their backs. According to a report from the Philippine Civil Defense Office, more than 200,000 people across Cebu Province were forced to flee their homes. In Talisay alone, more than 30,000 residents sought refuge in evacuation centers set up in schools, city halls, and churches. However, the limited capacity of these shelters left many evacuees sleeping on bare floors, with limited food and clean water supplies. Some residents were reportedly trapped on their rooftops for more than 24 hours before rescuers reached them. The death toll continues to rise as search and rescue efforts continue. As of Thursday, November 6, 2025, at least 114 people have died and 127 others remain missing across the Philippines due to Typhoon Kalmaegi. Of these, the majority are from Cebu, including Talisay, where landslides and building collapses were the primary causes of death. Some victims were found buried under the rubble of houses, while others were swept away by floodwaters. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the U.S. government officially declared a national disaster on November 6, 2025, following the escalating number of casualties and widespread damage. This decision was made to expedite aid distribution and mobilize national resources. In his speech, President Marcos stated that the government would prioritize the restoration of basic infrastructure such as electricity, clean water, and road access in affected areas, including Talisay. In Talisay, the power grid was completely blacked out since the night of the storm. Power poles were downed, cables were downed, and substations were flooded. As a result, communication was severely limited. Residents struggled to contact their separated families, and rescue teams faced significant coordination challenges. Furthermore, clean water supplies were disrupted due to damage to the city's water distribution system. Many residents were forced to use contaminated river water for their daily needs, increasing the risk of disease outbreaks. Hospitals in Talisay were also overwhelmed with injured victims. Talisay General Hospital, the city's only major hospital, experienced a surge in patients, doubling its normal capacity. Many patients were treated in hospital corridors, while medical personnel worked nonstop for over 48 hours. Several medical volunteers from neighboring cities such as Cebu City and Minglanilla were also deployed to assist. The Talisay local government, in collaboration with the military and humanitarian organizations, set up public kitchens and health posts at several evacuation centers. However, aid distribution was hampered by damaged roads and landslides. The main road connecting Talisay to Cebu City was closed for 2 days due to fallen trees and landslides. Heavy equipment was deployed to clear the route, and by the afternoon of November 6th, land access was gradually restored. Meanwhile, a sense of grief enveloped the city. In several places, residents held communal prayers to remember their missing or deceased relatives. Along the Mananga River, the debris of homes, furniture, and clothing remained scattered, a silent testament to the typhoon's devastating aftermath. Some residents were seen cleaning up their damaged homes, while others were still searching for missing family members. Typhoon Kalmaegi is predicted to be one of the world's deadliest typhoons in 2025, according to the EMDAT disaster database. After leaving the Philippines, Kalmaegi moved westward and made landfall in Vietnam on November 7th, but the worst impact remained in the Philippines, particularly in Cebu. Typhoon Kalmaegi, which struck Talisay, Cebu in early November 2025, not only brought physical destruction within hours, but also triggered a series of long-term impacts that would reshape the city's social, economic, and environmental life for years to come. This disaster was a painful turning point for thousands of families and a major test of the resilience of local and national governance systems. In terms of infrastructure, the damage caused by Kalmaegi was extensive and complex. The electricity grid across Talisay was completely paralyzed for over a week as power poles fell and substations were flooded. The water distribution system was also severely damaged, creating a water crisis amidst urgent needs in evacuation centers. Major roads were blocked by landslides and debris, hampering aid distribution and slowing evacuations. Several bridges connecting barangays collapsed, cutting off access to remote areas. The process of restoring this infrastructure is expected to take months, if not years, depending on the availability of funds and the technical capacity of local governments. The social impact of this disaster is also profound. Thousands of people were left homeless and forced to live in overcrowded evacuation centers with limited facilities. Many families were separated, and most evacuees had no certainty about when they would be able to return home or rebuild their lives. Children lost access to education because schools were damaged or used as shelters. In the long term, this situation could lead to an increase in dropout rates and exacerbate educational inequality. Economically, Typhoon Kalmaegi severely impacted the small and medium-sized businesses that form the backbone of the local economy. Many stalls, shops, and workshops were destroyed or lost their stock due to the flooding. Farmers and fishermen, who depend on seasonal crops for their livelihoods, suffered significant losses as agricultural land was submerged and fishing equipment was damaged. This resulted in a surge in unemployment and a decline in purchasing power. In the long term, economic recovery will depend heavily on capital support, workforce retraining, and inclusive economic recovery policies. The psychological impact is also a serious concern. Many residents experienced deep trauma from the loss of loved ones, homes, and a sense of security. Children exhibited symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, such as nightmares, excessive anxiety, and difficulty concentrating. Unfortunately, mental health services in Talisay are extremely limited, and there is no adequate psychosocial support system to reach all victims. In the long term, untreated trauma can impact productivity, social relationships, and overall community health. The disaster also prompted a major rethink in spatial planning and development policies. Many of the destroyed homes were located on riverbanks or in coastal areas prone to flooding. This highlights the weak enforcement of zoning regulations and the lack of awareness of disaster risks in urban planning. Local governments were encouraged to review spatial plans, tighten building permits, and relocate settlements to safer zones. However, this process was challenging due to issues related to property rights, land limitations, and social resistance. From an environmental perspective, Typhoon Kalmaegi caused significant damage to the local ecosystem. Mangrove forests, which serve as natural storm protection, were severely damaged, and rivers were polluted by floodwaters from household and industrial waste. Landslides also caused land degradation and the loss of vital vegetation. In the long term, this damage could exacerbate future disaster risks and disrupt the region's ecological balance. demographic changes are also becoming apparent. Some residents who lost their homes and livelihoods chose to relocate permanently to other cities, such as Cebu City or even to other islands. This forced urbanization put additional pressure on the infrastructure of the destination cities and created new challenges in terms of housing, employment, and social integration. Meanwhile, abandoned villages experienced population decline and economic stagnation. From a policy perspective, Typhoon Kalmaegi served as a catalyst for disaster management system reform in the Philippines. National and local governments began to recognize the importance of more effective early warning systems, community preparedness training, and investment in disaster-resilient infrastructure. However, the implementation of these policies faced classic challenges, such as budget constraints, bureaucratic slowdowns, and lack of interagency coordination.
Nada si Conris April hila kasi Max kuno. Nahimong oy traffic. Buisis. Grabe kabaha na jud. Oh, shout out Duna. Uy, asa si GM? Uy, please. Bisa di ka ginawa di.